Okay, I think we're about ready to get started. I just want to begin by saying how pleased I was by the tenor of the community gathering here and really the questions that were asked and the manner in which they were asked. I think everybody did really a very fine job and appreciate that very, very much. You know, we are really very fortunate to be well served by Terry Finger, who serves as the club's legal counsel. Terry really has extensive experience on matters comparable to that with which we are dealing currently, and in fact had been involved in an earlier effort by Main Street Partners to more extensively redevelop the former Hargrave property. We've asked Terry to provide additional background information, review the rezoning and permit process, and offer perspective on pathways forward. And Terry will be an integral part of the ad hoc committee. And as to the ad hoc committee, I really want to assure you that by way of prior professional experience and civic experience, this group is well prepared to gather and assess relevant information, develop and assist with the implementation of recommendations for future action, and very capably represent the best interest of our Long Cove Club community. Would the members of the ad hoc committee that are here please stand? Great. Okay, we have set aside about 10-15 minutes for Terry to make a presentation, followed by, again, a period for you to ask questions of Terry. So with that, Terry, I'll turn it over to you.
I am obviously better known as Lindsay Finger's father-in-law and Mark Finger's father. So I've been fortunate. When I moved here in 1984, I worked for a gentleman by the name of Chuck Scarmanach, who drafted all the original documentation for the developers of Long Cove. About 10 years ago, we were trying to amend the covenants, and I talked to Scarmanach, and he said, did they ever change the Mona Lisa? Why are you messing with my covenants? So I've been involved, but for 2 years since 1984, assisting the club with a lot of their legal issues. I've had the privilege of being in a bunch of board meetings. You guys are very well served by both the current board and every board I've ever represented. So I was also very pleased that I'm the Bluffton town attorney, and when we have public comment in Bluffton, typically we're getting yelled at. And the questions that you all asked the developer were right on point. They were polite, they were nice, and it's certainly a credit to your community that people who are directly affected by something on this scale would be as polite as you were. So with that said, let me try to get into my very short presentation. Zoning and covenants are the two ways, restrictive covenants are the two ways that property is controlled. Zoning regulates use, density, things like height and things like that. So that's what zoning does. Covenants say you can do this or you can do that on this property, but if you want to do anything else, you can't, or you have to come get special permission from the board or the ARB. In this case, we have both zoning considerations and we have the Long Cove covenants, both of which have a direct bearing on whether this developer will be entitled to move forward with the rezoning request that they have scheduled. The zoning for Long Cove is an interesting history. Long Cove was established and the covenants were placed on Long Cove, both here and on the commercial properties, prior to the town of Hilton Head being incorporated. And that meant that the Beaufort County controlled zoning. And if anybody of you been here as long, I see Peter's here, that anybody who's been here as long as some of us, Beaufort County kind of was, it's the county seat, and Hilton Head was just over there back in the 70s and 80s. So what they did is they said any master plan on a gated community back in the 80s, we're going to adopt that master plan as your zoning. And that's what they did for Long Cove and Sea Pines and everybody else back in pre-1983 when the town was incorporated. So our Long Cove master plan was the original zoning. Our original Long Cove master plan has no multifamily in it. So that's a big hurdle that will have to be jumped over at some point. Fortunately, not by us. It'll be a number of people who are right down the street. 7 of them will have to ultimately decide on that. The zoning currently for the Middle Street property is currently zoned light commercial. That means they are entitled to 4 units per acre. 4 residential units per acre, because the zoning, both our zoning here and zoning for the Long Cove Business Park, there was a separate set of covenants for the Long Cove Business Park that were put on the property in May of 1983. Those business covenants also say no multifamily. It has to be business. So 3 or 4 iterations of zoning. Currently, it's light commercial, 4 units per acre. They have 5.2 acres, which means under the current zoning, they could put in 21 units. The height limitation under light commercial, the way they are currently zoned, is 45 feet. What Middle Street wants to do is change light commercial zoning to what's called PD1. PD1 is an old throwback to the master plan approvals back before the town was incorporated. The maximum height under PD1 is 75 feet. They now say they want to keep it to 60. That's an accommodation that they are willing to try to make. The 240 units that they attempted to get rezoned in 2001, Leon Crimmins, a couple board members, and myself met with some town folks, and we met with them back in early 2021, and said, well, we're not really interested in 240 units sitting across the thing from us, and that eventually went away. They just did not move forward on that 2021 rezoning. They have an application pending now. The town has asked them a number of questions. The questions that I would have, if this was a Bluffton rezoning, and if I was the Bluffton lawyer, the questions I would be asking from my perspective was, where are you going to get the multifamily from if it's not currently allowed? Where are those density units going to come from? And I talked about Chuck Scarmanach in the very beginning. Chuck Scarmanach was the lawyer for Long Cove. He was also Charles Frazier's lawyer back in the early 70s. And Scarmanach came up with this concept of, here's a lot, and we're going to put a density unit on it. And you can't exceed the number of density units, but you can take a density unit from a lot. Now, whoever thought you could take a density unit and separate it from a lot, leave an empty lot that can never get built on, and take that unit and put it in South Beach so they can build more, or put it in Harbortown so they can build more. So the concept of movable density units is not something you find in a lot of communities, but it is well established here. So where are they going to get the density units, Middle Street, in order to build 136 units over there? When there's no units left, there's no multifamily in Long Cove. And there are only right now, I think, about 60 units that have not been built on in Long Cove, if I think my math is about right. Less than that, okay. So where do those units come from? That would be my question if I was the lawyer asking the questions. And how are you going to get multifamily? So those are two very, I think, very critical questions that the town staff, the town attorneys, will have to figure out whether it's even remotely possible. The procedure is they have filed their application. The next Planning Commission meeting is on May 15th. I don't believe they'll make the May 15th Planning Commission meeting. You heard Glenn earlier today said this might be an 8 or 9 month planning process. That's probably standard. I would anticipate this will go before the Planning Commission probably sometime June, July-ish. It's an open meeting. Anyone who has property within 350 feet of their property must get actual written notice of when the meeting is, etc. So anyone who has any type of comments that they would like to make before the Planning Commission, it's an open hearing, open meeting, and the public can make comments. You can be for it, you can be against it. We have a difficult time with decorum, to be quite blunt about it, and I see Mr. Ames sitting back there, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. 20 years ago, people would never come to a town meeting and call lawyers idiots and call town council members idiots, and that seems to be where we are in today's world, unfortunately. So if you do go to public comment, I tell you from sitting up on the dais at Bluffton every month, anybody who's polite and asks intelligent questions is going to get a lot more attention from the Planning Commission members than someone who's going to get up and start banging their fist and get red in their face. So I would urge you to act the same way you acted today with the developers. You will have a right to go to Planning Commission, ask any questions you want, make any type of presentation you want. Once it goes to Planning Commission, then they have this little side committee that kind of talks about it a little bit. It ultimately will end up before Town Council. The Planning Commission does not have to accept whatever recommendation the town staff makes. They can accept the town staff recommendation, they can deny it, or they can approve with conditions. So those are the three things that the Planning Commission can do: accept, deny, or approve with conditions. Conditions can be, you can do it, you can only build 100 units. You can do it, you must do this, you must do that, in order to lessen the impact on the adjoining property. It then goes, it ends up with the town council, before town council, because that is the body that decides on any type of rezoning and approves it or disapproves it. Town council does, and lawyers have to say something in Latin during every presentation, so I apologize. Town council has a de novo review, which means they are not stuck by what anything staff said or anything Planning Commission says. They look at it with fresh eyes, and they can do whatever they want. They can approve, deny, or approve with conditions. There is also the opportunity at Town Council to have public comment. Town Council must give it a first reading and a second reading. If Town Council elects not to entertain the rezoning, there is no second reading. They just deny it. There's no second reading. If they approve it or approve it with conditions, there must be second reading of that ordinance. And again, public comment would be allowed and encouraged at that point in time. I probably have rambled a lot longer than I need to. There's the May 15th Planning Commission, and then I think it's June, I wrote it down this morning. June 20th is the second, is the Planning Commission meeting in June. I'd be happy to answer any questions at all. The application is a public document. You're entitled to get copies of it. Look at it if you'd like. We are informed that town staff has sent a bunch of questions to the developer. I don't know, a bunch, maybe 4 or 5, maybe 2 or 3, I don't know, but sent some questions to the developer, said, please answer these questions so that we can finalize our staff report and get this application ready to go to Planning Commission. It is our understanding, as recently as last week, that those answers have not yet been provided back to the town. Unless it happened over the weekend, I don't believe so. We're not really privy to the questions. We know a little bit of them, and I'm happy to answer any. Roy, did I cover what the committee wanted me to cover? I'm happy to ramble as long as you want and answer any questions that you'd like.
If we could use the same process so that
I'll just talk real loud, they'll say me stepping on people's toes. Can you explain the process with the partnership? I mean, they bought the property, right?
That's correct.
But they do not know where the zoning.
here.
It seems to me they're taking a hell of a gamble that if the commission, or somebody says you can't do this, they've bought property, what are they gonna do? I mean, maybe David Ames can answer it. Is there like a wink and a nod, we're gonna give you something or something? But it seems to me as a developer, you're taking a hell of a gamble buying property when you don't even know if you can get it zoned or not.
I think they bought it at a price that they have a right to do business offices there. They could tear that Hargrave building down, they could revamp that, they could do it. So it does have vested use rights on the property now. I think the price, I don't know what price they bought it at. I've seen the deed, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. I think they probably feel that they have enough, if they do not get this apartment complex approved by a rezoning, they'll probably put it back on the market and try to get their money back. It would be my guess.
Thanks, Jeff.
3.5? The wonderful Christy down here said it was 3.5 is what they bought the property for.
Hi, Terry. It's Stan Shane. I know we've communicated indirectly with each other. Just a couple of questions. When did you first get involved with Long Cove in this issue involving the Mill Street Partners?
And this issue was, I think it was the second week of January in 2021.
21. Okay.
And then it went away at the end of February 2021, and it cropped back up beginning of this year. The first meeting I think we had with Glenn, who made the presentation, was on February 20th at the administration building.
But they owned the property in January of
I think-
2021?
They had it under contract, I believe, in 2021. I don't think they had closed it at that point.
I guess my question also is, why weren't we as a community more involved continuously from 2021 as they've gone through the application process, studies, planning commission, town council, whatever?
There was an application that they withdrew in very early of 2021, and that's the last we heard of it. There was no appearance before any planning commission or any town staff. They may have had some conversations with town staff or elected officials back in 21, but after Leon's meeting and a couple board members' meetings, my conversations with their lawyer at the time, they just folded their tent and went home, and we thought it was over until earlier this year.
But Terry, it's kind of interesting to me because somebody puts up $3.5 million, just don't go home, fold up their tent. I mean, there's obviously discussions maybe behind the scenes, but I think we probably should have been involved more than that. We've been involved since that time until recently. My next question is, under these circumstances, if our community decided we don't want it there, what are our chances, and this is a difficult question, understand that, of succeeding on that issue? Put up a full fight, and we're determined to do that in every step of the way, although we're starting a little late. What are your experiences, and what do you believe that our chances would be?
Well, a rezoning question, the rezoning must comply with 6 different criteria in order for the rezoning to move forward and ultimately to be approved. It must be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. That's the first factor. Whether this is or not, probably a close question. If the town council ruled that it was in compliance with their comprehensive plan, that's probably not something that would be overturned on an appeal in court. So that's factor 1. Second, is it compatible with the present zoning and conforming uses of nearby property and the character of the neighborhood? Again, that is a kind of a these are all subjective factors instead of objective, which makes it a little bit harder to overturn on appeal. Second one is compatible with present zoning and conforming uses of nearby property and character of the neighborhood. That's the second one. The third one is it suitable? Is the amendment suitable for the property affected, and are the proposed uses proper? That's the third. Fourth, is it suitable for the current zoning? Could it stay a business or a retail development? Is it suitable for current? What's the marketability of the property? And are there available utilities, water, sewer, et cetera? So those are the criteria that the Planning Commission and then Town Council have to decide whether it meets it or not. Most litigation, and anybody who is directly impacted by a rezoning, and directly impacted means more than just the general public. I mean, I don't live here, I live at the north end of the island. I would be considered, my impact would be as a general public. But if somebody lived on Fife Lane, they would have a direct impact, and they would have the ability to file a lawsuit questioning the rezoning if they chose. As would the club, because the club has property that's adjacent.
Considering
Did
all.
I answer your question right, Stan?
No, but you're
No?
close.
Okay, go ahead.
You gave me the
Go ahead,
reason.
Tell me what I missed then, please.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think our percentage would be? Or a scale of 100%?
Trial
0 to
lawyers,
100.
trial lawyers don't give percentages. It's too early right now, because I don't know what the planning commission or the town council would rule on these zoning criteria that I just went over. I think that we have a very strong argument that multifamily has never been authorized there. Not, and the covenants
What do you mean by
prohibit
there? I'm sorry to interrupt.
on their 5.22 acres.
Okay.
I think that is probably one of the strongest arguments that Long Cove or any individuals would have on any rezoning. So I can't give you a percentage, and I don't know many trial lawyers that do.
I didn't know you were a trial lawyer. I was
That's-
assuming you were more real estate lawyer, but that's
No,
okay.
I'm not a real estate lawyer. Primarily, I try cases. That's what I primarily do.
My next question, perhaps my last, is if our community decided that we just don't want this facility, this new development proposed, is Long Cove legally authorized to make a purchase offer and to purchase this property?
Long Cove always has the right, with owner's approval, to try to buy and acquire other property. So the answer to that question would be yes. It would take a referendum, it would take approval, and you'd have to figure out how to finance it. And I see somebody up here scratching his head right now. So, but yes, you would not be prohibited. It was part of the original master plan, so it would not be a reach. If you asked me that question, can you buy something over the bridge out in Bluffton, I'd probably say I wouldn't go there. But I think that since it was part of the original master plan, it would be something that would not be subject to attack if it got member approval.
And I guess last question, Terry, where can we find a copy of the master plan? Do you have one available for us, or is it going to be online?
That is a wonderful question, because the master plan was filed with Beaufort County. There are portions of it that Beaufort County has been able to locate that we have copies of, and part of the master plan, which talks about the specific uses in different areas, Beaufort County simply can't find for us yet. And we've got FOIAs in. I know the town has FOIA'd them also. FOIA is Freedom of Information Act. But no, anything that we have relative to the master plan, we're happy to share with anybody who would like a copy.
Yeah, when you get, if you have part of that plan available, I'd like to get a copy.
Yeah.
And make it available for the other members.
Sure.
And I'm certain that you're probably going to check with Chuck and other people that may have a copy of that master plan. Process taking place.
I know that we have portions of it. I know Christy and I have been working on getting whatever we can, and whatever we have, we're happy to share.
So Stan, a couple points. We also talked about putting the FOIA through. The town told us, don't bother with Beaufort County, they have one in. As soon as they get the documents, they're gonna turn them over to us. So as soon as we have it, everybody will have it. We'll make sure everybody's aware of it. As far as the timing of this whole thing, as Terry said, it shut down in February 2021. I got on the board in November 2021, and this wasn't brought up my first 2 years on the board. It wasn't until they reapplied in December, I think. Right, Chris? Yeah. December of this past year, that it became an issue. We met with the town January 4th. We tried to make a meeting with MSP as soon as we could. That took place, I think, February 20th. And as soon as we got done with that, we said we need to get you guys in front of the community, which we couldn't schedule till today. So we've moved along pretty quickly with this. We've got the ad hoc committee in place, so we're constantly in contact with the town, and we're constantly in contact with MSP. So if anything happens, we wanted to be prepared to get it to you as quick as we could. And Roy's right, we've got people that know the civic process, we've got project management people, we've got legal minds on the committee. We've got the right people in place to make sure as information comes out and it's pertinent, you guys get it, okay?
I can tell you that since our meeting in February, they have lowered their height 5 feet. They've increased their workforce housing by 3%, because it was 65 feet and 10% when we met with them. Then we asked them a specific question in February: how many of these units will you dedicate to Long Cove employees? And at that point in time, they made no commitment to do that. I did hear a commitment today. They didn't say how many, but at least they are willing to. Some of the things that we talked to them about in February, they have responded. At least they've moved the needle a little bit towards being cooperative.
I'm Tamara's husband. First of all, when I heard about this meeting, I thought it was a waste of time, but it isn't, and I was wrong. And I think the board did a wise thing having the meeting, and it's been very informative. You have been more informative than the prior dog and pony show. It seems to me that from what you've said, we could take a unified approach as a neighborhood, as a community, instead of individual people interacting with the town council or the planning commission. So I think it's incumbent upon the board and the ad hoc committee to formulate an opinion as a result of interacting with the community, rather than have individuals try to approach the planning commission and the town council. Do you believe that would be a more powerful approach to take?
I believe that would be more powerful. It would be more civil, and whether there was a petition signed, which was also handed up at the same time, that might be another thing. But from my understanding, from talking with these two gentlemen and the other board members, is that the primary reason that this meeting had two phases to it was so that the board could get a proper assessment of what the community felt about this project. They didn't want to go off and do it on their own, and that's why the ad hoc committee was formed. That's why input has been sought actually since January 4th, when they first started talking about it. So
I'd say we have a pretty good gauge of what the community's position is on this project. I'll also tell you, and you make a good point, Frank, the community will take a position and be represented as Long Cove Club, and individuals ought to do the same. But the other thing that we're going to do is look at other allies. I mean, there are slow growth, no growth, conservation groups. There's all kind of other groups that would share our point of view, that we would intend to rally around the position that we take. So we won't be standing alone. There's other gated communities. We think Wexford would have an interest, for instance. So our intent would be to put together a coalition that would be very, very powerful in making a presentation to the Planning Commission and the Town Council. Well, we did not, I said we have a good sense of what the community's position is, but we will develop a position based upon what we believe to be the case, take it to the board, and let everybody know.
I noticed the bad word. I apologize. Would you be interested in recommending a survey of the members to get their sense?
You're going to be asked to fill a survey out on the way out. And this would be just of the folks that were here, but yes.
I'm talking the rest of the
Yeah,
entire community.
correct.
In favor of that?
Yes.
Terry, I have a quick question. I'm Bill Sheridan. I think I can hear me.
But Bill, but here's, to be able to be recorded, you need to have.
One quick question. Did they put the apartments in there near Kroger? Did they have the same type of opportunity that we're facing now? Did they have to have all the rezoning and everything like that?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Where Kroger is, they put all those new apartments in.
That-
Did they have the
that-
same
yeah, okay,
opportunity
one.
there that we're facing right now?
I do not think,
They
I don't
haven't
know whether, I
rezoned.
was not involved in that. I don't think they went through rezoning. I think that the Shelter Cove master plan had multifamily in it, so there was no rezoning involved with that. That property was always zoned for that specific use.
I think it would be interesting to find that out, because
I'd be
I
happy.
could be wrong, but I think there might have been
I see a
something there.
council member in the back kind of nodding that I might be correct.
Right, good.
Bob Merkel, are you going to, which I'd be in favor of, I was a lawyer too, and when I see these zoning fights like this, normally the affected neighborhoods, when you have a large group, will have a separate fundraising procedure for attorneys and other costs. I assume, I guess I'm asking Roy, I assume we're gonna do the same thing and not wipe out our reserves, that we'll have a separate fundraising for attorneys.
We're looking for pro bono help on that. No, I can assure you that we'll handle the financial obligation that we have in an appropriate way.
I'm the other half, Jolyn Merkel. Just a question. I think I heard a phrase, Long Cove Industrial Park. I'm not familiar with that.
Business Park.
Or Business Park. I'm not familiar with that. Can you tell me where that is?
That's Fresh Market, and although all these buildings out there we're talking about was originally part of the Long Cove Master Plan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Roy. Hey, Terry Doug Wetmore. Only question, just procedurally, if this goes to the Planning Commission, then the Town Council, and let's say it's defeated at this time, does that put it to bed once and for all, or is this resurfaced 2 years from now with another owner?
I believe that the Hilton Head ordinance requires a 1-year waiting period. I can check on that, but almost all zoning ordinances say you can't just be serially filing these things day after day. I believe it's a 1-year waiting period before a new rezoning on the same terms can be filed.
Okay, any other questions for Terry? Well, again, I want to thank everybody for being here today, for expressing your interest, for raising your questions. As I said, I think we've got a pretty good idea as to where this community stands. That'll be confirmed by the exit survey that you take and by a larger survey of the community.
And one last thing, when I worked for Chuck Scarmanatch for about 8 years, he always said to me before I went anywhere, "Finger, don't embarrass me today." So if you see Chuck, and I did embarrass him today, please don't tell him that I did that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, I'll turn this back over to Ray.
So thanks everyone for coming. You know, part of this meeting was also to let you see how far along this isn't. They got a long way to go. They've got a lot to do. Tamara made some comments about traffic, which is spot on. DOT hasn't even got involved yet. That's not a town thing. 278 is under DOT. So they're gonna have to go check all that out. I think beyond the impact on Long Cove, you gotta think of the entire 278 corridor. If this one unit goes in, this one development, does that open the door for others and stuff? And what do we want 278 to look like? And how much traffic can 278 handle? All that type of stuff. So there's tons of things happening. We definitely, as Long Cove, will be putting a presentation forward if we're allowed at any of the public meetings. That was part of the plan from the very beginning. But we've got some time to do it right. We don't have to stake our position in the sand right now, because you can see they'll change things as we go along, trying to buy our support or whatever. We're not at that point yet. They've got a lot more work to do. They haven't put anything firm in front of the town. If you looked at their presentation today, it's just a concept. It's not really a plan. So we want to see more of that before we say these are the 2 or 3 or 4 things that really are a problem for us. So I think we're responding in the right way. We wanted you to know that we were responding in the right way, and that's why this meeting took place. And yes, if we need to survey or whatever we need to do to make sure everybody's on board with this, we'll do that. But we know where we need to go. Dennis?
Great. One thing that you do, and I've never done this, I don't think the island as a whole is worthy of this application. And I think the island is pretty much fed up with further residential development on sites that aren't zoned for residential. I mean, there's plenty of places you can put these kind of projects. You don't have to put it on a piece of property that's not zoned for it. So what I'm saying is, the more information gets out to the island about this, I think our support will be greatly enhanced.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself, Dennis. I think the town does have to, 15 days or something like that before the meeting, if Terry's still around, post the agenda, so people will know as it comes up in front of the Planning Commission and that type of thing. And I know that there's watchdog groups on the island that look at those type of agendas of the island. I guess you could ask David. He'll tell you that, you know, they look at what the agendas are on all these meetings, town council, planning commission, whatever. So I don't think we'll be the only ones commenting on it, but we'll make sure that the community's commenting on it. And if you're within 350 feet of it, you'll get a chance to comment on it as an individual as well.
Yeah, we'll be having an outreach program to those that feel as we do about the project. Thank you for your time. Hold on one sec.
Okay, so the survey is really important before you all leave. If you haven't completed one, there is one for those of you that attended here today. Please do this because this is data that we can use in the future, should we need to say this is how our community feels. And I'll work on getting some sort of a survey out to the rest of the community that was not here today. So nothing in the parking lot, a great meeting. I hope you all enjoyed at least understanding where we stand. Have a great day. Thanks.